Hey there, you're tuning in to LowKey by Oaky, our easygoing sessions for hotel professionals where we chat about industry trends, issues, and solutions.
Shall I go? Yeah. Okay. Hello, everyone. Warm welcome to LowKey by Oaky, episode number 4, the hospitality podcast, where we at Oaky talk with distinguished guests about exciting, thought-provoking, challenging concepts in the hospitality industry that we're excited about. And today we have a really exciting topic. We're going to talk about innovation in the future of dynamic pricing. And in front of me in beautiful Amsterdam, the sun is shining on us. We have a guest that is very special to me. He is probably one of the people in the industry who has the best kind of finger on the pulse in terms of what do hotels and hotel groups think about pricing, where are we headed next, and what is required to get there. And he's also a very, very lovely person and always greets you with a big smile and is a source of inspiration. Klaus, it is an honor to have you here. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Well, thank you so much for having me. All these compliments, I'm not sure if I can live up to them, but I will try.
And Klaus, maybe as a brief moment of introduction for those of you who don't know you, why are you a perfect guest to talk about dynamic pricing, you think?
I don't know. You should tell me. But I'm really passionate about revenue management and pricing. I kind of got first exposed to it in the late 90s. I'm not going to say exactly when, in the late 90s. And it was just something that I became really, really passionate about, because it's all about understanding kind of how guests react to changes in price, and it's kind of a little bit of a game of doing that. And I decided to make a career out of it. And for the last 5 years, I've been with IDeaS, the leader in revenue management and pricing, and as their chief evangelist, which is doing exactly what we're doing now, talking to people and thought leadership and bringing the concept of revenue management pricing to many, many people in the industry.
Nice. Yeah. Well, again, we're super happy to have you here. We're going to dive right into it. I thought we could start by setting the context. What is dynamic pricing and why is it important?
It's very important for any business. And actually, about 10 days ago, I looked with our president and co-founder at his initial mission that he wrote back in 1989 when he founded the company. And the initial vision really didn't talk about pricing or revenue management. It talked about helping businesses make scientifically based automated decisions. And it just happened to be that pricing and revenue management, but especially dynamic pricing, is all about automating your decisions that you make to price your products based on science and mathematics and the data that you collect. And as the world moves faster and faster, and we get more and more data that our consumers or the market or the environment allows us to tap into, we are able to fine-tune our pricing more and more specifically, which means that as a result of that, companies in general, but for us, hotel companies in particular, are able to make it more and more money.
And what about the guest side? Like, if you think about this in a more philosophical manner, philosophically, from a guest perspective and a hotel's perspective, what is the perfect price and why?
The perfect price for us is the price that the next customer who's going to call or book is willing to pay.
One after you.
The next customer. So think about what is the right price to expose the next guest to on your website or OTA, whatever channel you're booking, and at what price will you drive the highest conversion? So it's understanding what kind of guests you will get through your channels at what point, and what price sensitivity of what needs to have that you can translate into a price so they can then convert at a pretty high rate. So it's not about increasing your price constantly. It's about having the right price, which might be lower or higher, exposed to the right customer or at the next customer that is booking, and understanding who that customer, what they need and what their behavior is and what they're looking for.
And when you have, for example, nationalities like Dutch and Irish. They are the biggest coupon hunters in the world, right? They love to get a good deal. Then you have nationalities. I remember with Oaky in the early days, we have hotels in, for example, Eastern Europe, and there, when you sold things at a discount, it would be perceived as bad quality. So actually conversion dropped when the discount was too high.
Yeah.
So how do you take that into account and make that, how does dynamic pricing basically work for the larger mass, given that we are so different as people?
Yeah, and what you do, you collect massive reams of data, and you put that into a big engine, and you use that data to understand customer behavior. And that might be by segment, it might be by booking behavior, it might be by length of stay, how many people are traveling, and so forth. And then based on the data that you're collecting and based on the understanding you gather from that data, you then are able to fine-tune your pricing according to behaviors that your source markets or your guests in general or your consumers are willing to spend. So in your example, for somebody who is maybe a little bit more price sensitive, you might display something different.
Yeah.
Because they also have different behaviors. Maybe they book earlier, or they stay longer, or they book during certain periods where you have lower demand. You price very differently than for somebody who books at the last minute, for example.
Yeah.
You also have some markets, for example, because we also it's not just pricing; it's also overbooking, and it's many other factors. In some markets, you're not able to overbook. For example, in Japan, impossible to overbook because the risk of denying somebody a room when they show up at the hotel is too high culturally.
Oh, yeah.
So you have to have different factors that are basically factoring in nationality and cultural sensitivities as well.
It's a fascinating concept, and it seems incredibly difficult, but we are at a point now where this is 100% automated, and we're here to talk about how are we going to bring this even forward, right?
Yeah.
So if we just summarize the past, we started with doing, if I can take your role, we started by looking at supply and demand on a hotel level. Then we started doing it on a room type level. And we take a lot of all the things that you just mentioned into account when doing this. What does the future of dynamic pricing look like? And what is the low-hanging fruit that we will do the soonest, you think? And what is like 5 years from now?
Yeah, and it's interesting you're talking about the history. When I started doing revenue management, I built this massive spreadsheet that I programmed myself, and I collected all the data, or had the night auditor import all the data, and then I looked at that all day long, and then I translated it manually into the channels. There were no channel managers, so I had to put it manually into all the channels, and that took me all day. And now we make 10 billion pricing decisions every day across our 22,000 hotels. It's completely automated. The system decides what price to sell at what channel for what product. And it does that, and it updates it multiple times a day. And as a revenue manager or somebody at the hotel or corporate office, you can still influence that and you can override it if you need to. But the system in many instances makes the decisions by itself. And that's really what we're talking about, automated, scientifically based dynamic pricing. We're now at a point where it's not just the best available rate that's being priced, but for each of the room types, each of the different rate plans, each of the length of stays, each of the channels can be priced independently, can be forecasted independently, and each of them have their own price sensitivity. So it becomes much more complex.
So in that situation, a suite can actually be cheaper than a deluxe room.
It could be. Yeah. If the demand is such that the suite would not be sold otherwise, then that would be the case.
If you can email me every time that happens this year, I'll be happy.
I don't think we've built the logic yet to create that, but we can look at it, Erik. But just as an example, we turned on recently a hotel in Vegas, quite a large hotel. And on the first day where we turned it on, we sent 14 million decisions to that hotel to update all their pricing. So the scale at which that is being done now, it's enormous.
And when you look then into the future, like let me give you an example. I'm booking. I'm a big believer in you have to envision that things are going to happen and then it's going to be great. So I'm booking this really nice vacation over New Year's to celebrate what a great year this is going to be. That's how I work. But it's weird, right? You say something, you talk to people, and it looks like my laptop is listening to me because now all over my feed is like, Erik, for the love of God, don't book your airline ticket like this. Go on Google. Don't put in the destination by your keyboard. Click on it in the Google airline travel in incognito using a shitty Windows computer instead of a Mac, and then you're going to get a much better rate. Crazy. So I follow all these instructions.
And do it from a certain country so you get an even lower rate.
Right, for sure. They talked about changing the IP. Indeed.
That's right.
And I followed some of these instructions, and I ended up booking at thebrand.com anyway because it felt more legit and it was similar priced. But that's one thing. That's airlines, and I see all of this content, and then I'm a loyal customer of Uber. There is also a lot of content how you can kind of game their dynamic pricing algorithm. If there's a lot of if you have to pay a very high price, you can pick a geolocation a little bit further out, walk for 5 minutes, you get it way cheaper, pre-book or whatever. But my point of this story is I never receive anything like this about hotel, like gaming a hotel rate. And I think that's very fascinating. And I thought about it. It's because of two reasons. First of all, there is no content about gaming a hotel rate, or at least no content that reaches me. And I think that's unlikely because I say ketchup nowadays and Heinz is all over my feed, But the second thing then that springs to mind is there are probably more variables in the dynamic pricing calculator for airlines that has to do with how I book and search behavior and being on certain devices and countries, like you said, than is common practice in hotels. So when we look into the future, do you think that is one key area that we're going to consume more variables and eventually we will, as consumers, have more opportunities to try to game the system? Because today there seems like it's quite slim.
Yeah, I think you mentioned a really good point. And while you were talking, I was just thinking about the examples you brought up. And I think one of the key points in the hotel industry is that, for example, at Uber or in the airlines, you have a pretty good, it's probably a central team that manages a lot of these things, the channels, the marketing and revenue management. In the hotel industry, I find it's still quite siloed, that marketing and distribution and revenue management are not always working hand in hand. And because you have different people making decisions that are based on their individual KPIs, many times, you don't have a all-encompassing strategy yet. So one of the things that I'll see will happen in the future, and is already happening, is commercial leaders will more and more look at the entirety of all the revenue-generating channels and taps and that they can turn on, including marketing and channels and sales. And that'll become more and more converged, or will converge more and more. The second part is...
Sorry, can I pause you there?
Go ahead.
In the world, do you see a certain geographic location or type of property where this happens sooner?
I think the large chains, large US-based chains are pushing very hard on that, yes. Okay. And the second one is, which is the area you and I are playing in, it's that you're going to see more and more individual items, features, attributes that are going to be priced and chopped and unbundled going forward.
Yeah.
Just last week, Chris Silcock, the Chief Commercial Officer of Hilton, was at a conference in London where he talked about attribute-based pricing and shopping and how they're starting to pilot some of those concepts. IHG has talked about this for a while. Marriott is working on it with the new CRS that they acquired, or that they're building with Amadeus. So a lot of companies are talking about it, and the future will be to enable guests to book more unbundled experiences that are more relevant to them. Yeah. And you'll have at the operational or hotel side, the departments coming together more tighter than in the past.
Well, if I can pause you there, we are talking to our larger hotel chain customers. So we're going to, at some point this year, start to dynamically price breakfast. Because if you look at the most 10 sold items, breakfast is always at the top. If you exclude Scandinavia, because it's always included there for some reason. but
you tell me why.
I don't know. Somebody started with it and everyone else had to follow suit, I guess. I know Radisson, they broke out of that now. So if they're successful, maybe it will be unbundled too. But the point is a really, really high quantity amount of breakfast sold everywhere. So if you can dynamically price that would be great. There are some new companies, Dynamite, for example, that are starting to price F&B dynamically and with a lot of electronical menus. That there's now an opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
What other other things than the room do you consider to be like the biggest opportunities from what your hotel customers are sharing? This is what we need at the moment.
Yeah, the way we look at it is eventually everything will be priced dynamically, right?
Sure,
more or less. If you're talking about F&B, it might not be every minute, but it might be your weekends versus your weekdays might be priced differently, or your lunch versus dinners, right? So we look at the hotel in its entirety, and we think everything will eventually be dynamically priced. We already have a product for function space and meeting rooms. We have a product for parking, which is not in the hotel area, but for airport parking. We price a lot of the airport car parks around the world. Some of the largest airports use our system for that.
Yeah.
Definitely F&B coming down the line. But when you look at F&B, a lot of hotel companies don't make a lot of money from F&B because the way the management agreements are structured. So it's less of a priority for the big brands, but it's more of a priority, obviously, for the independent and smaller chains or hotel or companies that have a fully owned or fully managed portfolio.
Yeah.
And then you have all the other ancillary revenues, right? The beach, the towels, anything that you could have at the hotel or around the hotel. And what I find fascinating in that is Accor has talked about augmented hospitality, for example, for the last few years, which not only talks about opportunities within the hotel, but also what's around the hotel and how do you offer that to a customer that's staying at a hotel. So I think the concept of augmented hospitality, some of the stuff that Accor is doing, where, for example, Ennismore is driving more than 50% of their revenue from non-room items. Yeah. These are huge opportunities for more sophisticated, more automated, and more scientifically based pricing. I wouldn't call it fully dynamic because, again, we probably won't see it changing by the minute.
But it'll better be more static.
It'll be more scientific and it'll be more sophisticated as today. Yes.
Interesting. I mean, all of those brands that you're mentioning there, what they all have in common is that they have a really strong brand identity. Like people go to Hoxton because it's cool.
Yes.
And those guys figured out a concept that works, right?
Yes.
I'm a local here in Amsterdam, or go to that place quite often.
Good for you. I could never stay there. It's too expensive for me.
No, I don't mean as a guest. I go to the restaurant.
Okay.
So that's probably how they make so much revenue.
Yeah. 50% of revenue comes from non-room items. So for the entirety, the Ennismore entity that encompasses Hoxton and everything else that they have acquired.
Yeah. And to double down on what you said, we see a huge trend in what used to be the case that you use, I don't know, my daddy's day, you would go to a tour operator and you would book everything from A to Z. Now you really book as you go, right? And I always like to think and say to hotels that are thinking about how should I think about my customer journey? Well, you should think about it like this. Guests will always plan as they go. And if you don't sell it to them, somebody else will. So it might as well be you.
Absolutely.
And if we can add dynamic pricing on top of that would
be amazing. It's you bring up, again, very interesting points. I had a conversation with my daughter recently, and she went to Colorado for a ski trip for a week. And I'm like, well, how much is your entire cost of that ski trip? And she said, I really don't know.
No.
I booked my Airbnb in September. I booked my ski ticket in November. As I get closer and closer, I book different items.
Yeah.
So the price sensitivity changes constantly as she's just adding different things to the basket of her trip, right? Yeah. So you have that. So people sometimes don't really know what they're spending because they're
emotionally you forget as well.
You forget 100%. Yeah. And she's like, I just want to have a great experience, right?
Yeah.
And the other thing to that is, if I'm just finishing up, the other thing to that is the pay now, buy now, pay later concept. And we haven't really researched that yet. I also wonder what impact that has on price sensitivity when when you can pay a $500 a night a room and you pay it off over 12 months.
Interesting.
It becomes a different purchasing experience than if you pay it all at upfront, right? So
yeah. There we go. That went fast, huh?
That was very fast. Yeah, we could talk much longer.
We can. Let's have a voting system I don't know how we will pull that off. But I was actually thinking when I was walking earlier today in the sunshine, it would be so interesting to have you back and look at where are we now with dynamic pricing in like 6 to 9 months or something. But anyway, that was the main part of the podcast today. We've come to the part which is about the shameless plug.
The fun part.
The fun part. So the floor is yours, Klaus. What do you feel like plugging shamelessly? It can be anything and everything.
No, I think especially to your listeners, right? When I would be looking at a hotel, I would look at always when I was a revenue manager at the hotel, I would look at all the different opportunities that I have to A, offer a better experience to guests, and B, how can I make more money from that for my business? Yeah. So if you're thinking about yourself as an entrepreneur, if you're a revenue manager or somebody at the hotel who makes revenue decisions, think like an entrepreneur and then look at the technology that you can use in order to accomplish that, not yourself manually, but accomplish that automatically. Yeah. So what we've built over the last 30 years now is really sophisticated technology that's at the same time simple to use, that automates a lot of the things that we've been talking about and makes life so much easier for the revenue managers or the commercial leaders at the hotel, as well as the corporate offices or regional offices. And it's just getting more and more sophisticated, which puts the power really in the palm of the hand of the revenue managers or owners or operators or general managers.
Yeah. I'm such a big believer in that. It allows you to become strategic, right, in a completely different way.
Absolutely.
Will be interesting to see where we end up with all the AI hype the past couple of weeks and what happens to our jobs and how we can become more strategic. From my side, spinning off of that then, and to give some context, like did you know that we have less attention span than a goldfish?
Yeah, 8.5 seconds.
Yeah,
you told me that.
I did, and in such a world, right, where you need to be so concise and so on the spot, relevant in everything that you kind of see and market and sell and upsell. Content is one thing, knowing when to upsell is another thing, on what channel, etc. And of course, Oaky helps with all that. But price is a huge component of enabling conversion rate. And we know that hoteliers that go from a static room upgrade and early check-in, late checkout pricing to a dynamic one with Oaky have a 40% increase in revenue overnight across those items. And on that note, I'm very excited to share that we have a really exciting integration coming up with IDeaS that we will launch in a little bit. So watch this space. But for anyone that is an IDeaS and Oaky customer, you can plug it in and literally be live in a second once that's live. And for anyone else that wants to listen to more about it, please contact anyone here at Oaky, and we will be happy to talk to you.
Or IDeaS.
Or IDeaS, for sure.
Yeah, we're very excited about that.
Yeah,
it makes so much sense. Dynamic pricing for more and more items, including for upselling. It's just a no-brainer.
Yeah, definitely. Amazing. Thank you so much. Then what was the last thing that we wanted to talk about? It was somebody that you worked with that you really admire, or some sort of a mentor.
Yeah.
What do we talk about there?
Yeah, I think when I think about my journey of kind of how did I end up here in the middle of Amsterdam on a beautiful sunny day talking to you, there's a lot of people that have helped me get to that point. I think I always, when I speak a lot of universities and talk to students and kind of the new generation or next generation of leaders, and I always say that there is a couple components that make you successful. One is ambition, one is luck, one is passion, one is flexibility. Mm-hmm. The other big component is actually having the right people around you and searching out the right people to help you, right? Yeah. So having mentors and having people that help you get to that next level that you want to achieve is incredibly important. And there's a couple people that have helped me through that journey over the years. It's probably too many to mention. But if you are at the beginning of your career or you're thinking about your next step, do not be afraid of asking people for help or asking people to mentor you, or searching out the people that you admire and put yourself in a position where you work closely with them and then learn from them. And I think that's one of the reasons why I am where I am, because I was just lucky that I had quite a few people helping me on that journey and helping me get to that next level throughout the last 30 years or so that I've been doing this and other things.
And now you give back, right?
I give back. Yeah, I speak at universities. I do mentoring myself within the company and others outside the company who ask me for it, and it's very rewarding. Absolutely,
I can testify to that. Every time I email you, you're always up for something. You know,
I'm always up for something.
No, but I think that's great. Like that yes man kind of personality, something that inspires me. Oaky wouldn't have been where we were if it wasn't for successful people who have especially successful people who have kind of come of age, and I would say come of age, maybe north of 60. I've never asked a question to someone north of 60 or something, and they have turned me down. Right. Maybe they've said, I don't have time right now, but everyone has been willing to sit down and have a chat. Yeah. So I would say definitely have the cojones to go and and chat with people is very, very important.
Right.
And on that note,
I'm not north of 60, right?
No. I'm not throwing any jabs here. But like two investors that have meant a lot for us would be Derek, our very initial investor. He was always there for us. Very, very smart businessman who came from like a farmer background. He taught us how to raise and build a company. Don't be penny wise and pound foolish. But we did everything really, really financially smart, and that kind of set the structure to the company that we become. And he's always been there for us in a very selfless way. Also because I think he was just so tremendously successful. He just saw, here are three guys, I believe in them, and I'm gonna, do my best to make it work. And the other one that especially in the early days was a very big difference was Uli. He came on board as an angel many years ago. And having someone that was specifically in the hotel tech space was remarkable. And I remember the one advice that him and a couple of others gave us was focus on one thing, and you will be great. And that was what actually it propelled us into pre-arrival upselling at the time. So that's cool.
Yeah, I don't know Derek, but I know Uli very well. So
Yeah.
he's been a friend for a long time, and it doesn't get any better than that. So
Yeah.
you picked a great person there.
Yeah. Hey, Klaus. There we go. Time's up. We didn't cover quite as much as I would have wanted to. There is a lot more about dynamic pricing that we can say, but we did cover a lot. And if we summarize, dynamic pricing is any hotelier's tool to drive more revenue and enhance the guest experience at the same time. There's a lot of opportunity for those that don't do it, free up time to do other things. And we identified a lot of low-hanging fruit of other items than rooms that can certainly be dynamically priced. And we here and now promise to all listeners that we will do a follow-up session in due time when we have something more exciting to share about this topic. Klaus, enjoy the sunshine. Amsterdam is waiting for you. You brought the sunshine. You're always welcome back. Thanks so much for being with us, and have a great time here in our city.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and I'd love to come back anytime.
Sounds
Thanks,
good, man.
Erik.
Bye-bye.
Bye.